Welcome to Principles of Management. This week we're going to be looking at Chapter 15, Managing Communications. The learning outcomes include explain the role that perception plays in communication and communication problems, describe the communication process and the various kinds of communication in organizations, explain how managers can manage effective one-on-one communication, and describe how managers can manage effective organization-wide communication. Communication is the process of transmitting information from one person or place to another. Basic management process cannot be performed without effective communication. Management process involves planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Perception is the process by which individuals attend to, organize, interpret, and retain information from their environments. People experience stimuli through their own perceptual filters, the personality, psychology, or experience-based differences that influence them to ignore or pay attention to a particular stimuli. Because of filtering, people exposed to the same information will often disagree about what they saw or heard. Perceptual filters can affect each part of the perception process: attention, organization, interpretation, and retention. People exposed to the same communication and information can end up with completely different ideas and understandings. Two of the most common perception problems in organizations are selective perception and closure. Selective perception is the tendency to notice and accept objects and information consistent with our own values, beliefs, and expectations, while ignoring or screening inconsistent information. Closure is the tendency to fill the gaps of missing information by assuming what we don't know is consistent with what we already know. According to attribution theory, people use two general reasons or attributions to explain people's behavior. Internal attributions include behavior is thought to be voluntary or under the control of the individual. External attributions, behavior is thought to be involuntary and outside the control of the individual. The defense bias is the tendency for people to perceive themselves as personally and situationally similar to someone who is having difficulty or troubles. The fundamental attribution error is the tendency to ignore external causes of behavior and to attribute other people's actions to internal causes. The self-serving bias is a tendency to overestimate one's value by attributing successes to oneself and attributing failures to others or the environment. People can become defensive and emotional when managerial communication threatens their positive self-image. They quit listening and communication becomes ineffective. There are many kinds of communication: formal, informal, coaching or counseling, and nonverbal, but they all follow the same fundamental process. The module of communication process has major components. The sender is the sender thinks of the message. Encoding is the message is put into a form that the receiver will understand. Transmitting, the sender transmits the message via communication channels. The receiver is receiving the message. Decoding is when the receiver decodes the message, and then the receiver sends feedback. Noise, which interferes with communication process, can occur at any stage, and jargon is a form of noise. An organization's formal communication channel is the systems of official channels that carry organizational approved messages and information. There are three formal communication channels: downward communication, upward communication, and horizontal communication. What managers can do to improve communication: they can decrease reliance on downward communication, increase chances of upward communication by increasing personal contact with low-level managers and workers, and encourage better use of horizontal communication. An organizational informal communication channel, sometimes called the grapevine, it is the transmission of messages from employee to employee outside of the formal communication channels. The grapevine arises out of curiosity, that is, the need to know what's going on in an organization and how it might affect oneself and others. The grapevine can be accurate, and managers should use the grapevine. Coaching and counseling are two kinds of one-on-one communication. Coaching is communicating with someone for the direct purpose of improving the person's on-the-job performance or behavior. Counseling is communicating with someone about non-job related issues such as stress, childcare, healthcare issues, retirement plans, or legal issues that may be affecting or interfering with the person's performance. Nonverbal communication is any communication that does not involve words. Kinesthetic and paralanguage are two kinds of nonverbal communications. Kinesthetics is from the Greek word kinesis, meaning movement. They are movements of the body and the face. Paralanguage includes pitch, rate, tone, volume, and speaking patterns, such as the use of silences, pauses, and hesitations in one's voice. When it comes to improving communication, managers face two primary tasks: managing one-on-one communication and managing organization-wide communication. The communication medium in the method used to deliver the message. There are two general kinds of communication medias, and that is oral or written communication. Studies show that managers generally prefer oral communication over written because it provides the opportunity to ask questions about the parts of the message that they don't understand. In general, when the message is simple, such as quick request or presentation of the straightforward information, a text or email is often the better communication medium. Most people, including managers, are terrible listeners. Active listening means assuming that half the responsibility for successful communication by actively giving the speaker non-judgmental feedback that shows you're accurately heard what he or she said. Empathetic listening goes beyond active listening because it depends on our ability to set aside our own attitudes or relationships to be able to see and understand things through someone else's eyes. Managers need to recognize that feedback can be constructive or destructive. For feedback to be constructive rather than destructive, it must be immediate, focus on specific behavior, and be problem-oriented. Although managing one-on-one communication is important, managers must also know how to communicate effectively with a larger number of people throughout an organization. Several methods of electronic communication now make it easier for managers to communicate with people throughout the organization and get the message out. Several options are available, such as emails, discussion channels and chat rooms, real-time broadcasting, and voice messages or voicemails. Withholding information about the organization's problems or issues is called organizational silence. Company hotlines, survey feedbacks, frequent informal meetings, surprise visits, and blogs are additional ways of overcoming organizational silence. Monitoring social media such as blogs, Twitter, Facebook, written by people outside the company can be a good way to find out what others are saying or thinking about your organization or its products or actions. Company hotlines are phone numbers that anyone in the company can call anonymously to leave information about upper management. Survey feedback is information that is collected by surveys from organizational members and then compiled and used to develop action plans for improvement. Monitoring social media and blogs can be a good way to find out what others are saying or thinking about your organization or its products or actions. Town hall meetings can be an effective way for the company to hear feedback from employees. As always, thank you for taking the time to listen to this lecture. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.